Hey guys, what's up? It's Rohan, back with another podcast. As you can see, it's in a different setting. It's just me today and my little dog, you guys can see. But yeah, it's just me today. We're gonna be filming a different type of podcast. Ursula's still here, obviously. Don't worry. But we're gonna be talking about, as you guys may have been able to see by the video title, it's about the partition. So my part's gonna be about the Indian side of the partition, and then Ursula's part is gonna be about the Pakistani side, and then we're gonna come together and kind of compare and see how the Pakistani side differed from the Indian side, and then we're just gonna talk about it. So we're gonna release it in 3 parts. This is part 1. His part will be next Friday, part 2, and then the third one, obviously, part 3. And if you guys want to see any more, like anything else about the partition, you guys can let us know, because I do have some family members that are still alive and kind of have a little bit of experience from the partition. So if you guys are interested in getting a more primary source, then let us know. I have asked him a little bit of information, my grandfather, and I am talking about a little bit of that here. So yeah, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and follow us on all of our platforms. We are on Instagram, YouTube, as you guys know, TikTok. I almost forgot about TikTok. And we have a link tree, so if you're on one of our platforms, you can hopefully see our link tree. And we have a Google form in there, so if you guys are interested in sending us topics or something like that, or just want to give us feedback but you don't feel like posting a public comment or something like that, you can put it in there. And in our Spotify, we do have a poll thingy, so you can leave, suggestions and stuff like that in there as well. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. This is going to be India's side and the partition as a whole, how it impacted everyone. So as I said before, I'm from India, and I'm from Punjab. So my dad's from Patiala, and I know I said in the very first video, I didn't know where my my grandfather, who we call Nanu, was from, but he is from Sargoa in Pakistan. So yeah, I know now. Anyways, so as you guys know, those were kind of the main areas that were separated, Punjab and Bengal. So I'm gonna go ahead and talk about a little bit, So during this time, India was known as British Raj, under the British rule, obviously. So when they were deciding to draw the lines for the partition, they were going off of religious dominance, right? So if Muslims were more on this side and then Hindus were more on this side, then they would draw a line right in the middle to separate them. So the person who was separating this, I might butcher his name, but I'm not 100% sure. His name is Sir Cyril, Cyril, Radcliffe. So he drew the lines. He was a British lawyer. I'm not 100% sure why they chose a lawyer. Maybe, actually I have no idea why, but so they chose a lawyer to do it, and he drew them, like I said, just based off of religious dominance. But it was very rushed, lines. You can kind of see this because during the drawing of the lines, the British wanted to get out of India completely at this point because, they just couldn't afford to stay there anymore. So they ordered these lines to be drawn, just fairly quick, so India could just handle themselves, and I guess now Pakistan could handle themselves. So that's the reason why the lines are kind of the way they are. Now, it's important to note that new religions, or religions that were pre-existing that were not Islam and Hinduism, were still affected by this partition, specifically Sikhism, because Pakistan is mostly Punjab. The Sikh people residing in that area were split in half because Sikhism originated in Punjab. So that area, when it got split, it caused many people to have to either stay in Pakistan or move into the India side, which caused a lot of issues because Sikhs were, afraid that they were gonna get prosecuted, similar to how they did during the Mughal rule in, I believe, 1528. I'm not 100% sure, but it's 1500s. During that time, Sikhs were prosecuted a lot because of their beliefs and their, new upcoming religion. So during the creation of the borders, 2 days later, the lines would be released to the citizens. So prior to the lines being released, many people were fighting each other and were being killed because they didn't know whose territory was whose. So this caused a lot of conflict and a lot of unnecessary deaths due to this fact. Now, unfortunately, after the borders were released to the people, it had already been a little too late because 15 million Hindus, Sikhs, and Muslims combined were killed in this conflict. But some would unfortunately be thrown out of their homes if they weren't killed, if they refused to leave. So if I didn't want to leave Pakistan and I was Hindu, I would have to leave because of all the issues that were happening, and the Muslims would force me out. Or if I was a Muslim in India, I would have to leave because of the Hindus who were forcing me out. And the same thing for Sikhs. Sikhs were being forced out by Muslims, but unfortunately this would be true for my grandfather. His family would have to be forced out of their homes because they were on the Pakistani side. So as I mentioned earlier, he's from Sargoa. So at a young age, I can't remember how old he was, but he was fairly young. He was forced to leave his home to go to India, which he went to Lucknow. So that's where he says he's from now. But originally he's from Sargoa. So he mentions that this caused it took a lot on his mother. So she was dealing with a lot during this partition because her sister was staying in Pakistan with her husband, and during that time her sister later found out that she had died with her husband. And learning that information while leaving your home country, that's a lot to take in, and that's a lot to deal with. So he said that she was never the same after that. She was always, she had a lot of PTSD from that. And I could imagine, right? You're leaving your home, right? And then to go to a new place, and it's crazy. And that's not to just say that only Pakistan forced India out, but India forced Pakistan out as well. And when I say India, I mean Hindus, and when I say Pakistan, I mean Muslims. So it was a very hard time for both religions and Sikhism. We always forget about Sikhism just because it's not as major up there, but they were still very much impacted as well. Now, during this whole issue of crossing borders and everything like that, you would have to leave your things behind, right? So my grandfather leaving his house behind and everything he knew, right? That's a lot, but it's also scary. So obviously he had to take some stuff. So my mother told me this time that, I guess my Nanu told her, that my Nanu's mother took their jewelry and gold and stuff like that in Tupperware, a dabba or something, and folded it in rotis or something, or paranthas. And when people were crossing, they would get looted and stuff like that. So when they saw her, she was an old lady, so they would be like, "Oh, auntie, what is this? What do you have in there?" And she's like, "Oh, it's nothing, it's just food." And then I guess they would take a peek, or they would just be like, "Oh, okay, whatever," because she's old, and then they just didn't really see it. So stuff like that is a real truth for people. They had to smuggle their own possessions to their new home that they were forced to live in. Now, when I mentioned looting, there was also a lot more horrific things that happened, such as looting, like I just said, and rape to women, and unfortunately children being killed. Like, all these things were happening, and I just, like, when I think about it, it's like, wow, like, why all this conflict, right? Like, just, like, all these people were living together, right, under the British Raj, right? But previously, they were under the Mughal rule, right? And during the Mughal rule, I don't know if you guys know, but, like, I'll tell you a little bit, but the Mughal rulers, like the emperor and everything, they were very tolerant of all these religions. And the Mughal, like that whole empire, they were all Muslim, right? So it was a Muslim majority empire while in a Hindu country, right? So the emperor was very tolerant of these religions and allowed for all of them. And I can't remember if it was the Mughal. Oh, it was. I don't remember who exactly, but one of the Mughal rulers tried to create a religion basically unifying both of the Islamic faith and the Hindu faith, right? But I mean, that didn't really work out, but like, he still tried, you know what I mean? So what I'm basically saying is how Hindus and Muslims were living together for like a while before the British came. Sure, it wasn't perfect, but it wasn't all this bloodshed that it was in the 1940s, which is unfortunate. But at the end of the day, it's not really the people's fault in a way, because as you can see, they were living perfectly fine already. But then this British influence came and just started polluting them and then causing all this conflict between everyone. Both of these faiths are not like inherently bad. Like, that's not to say that there's religions that are just blood, war, and everything, but especially these two, they're very pacifist. So, and if you're fighting for your own religion, then why with the blood, right? Like, you can fight with your words or something like that. But I'm judging on the outside, but I still think this could have been handled differently, as well as not have killed so many people. Like I said earlier, that was just from like before the partition and stuff like that. Or excuse me, before the lines drew. That was 15 million people that died. I'm gonna go ahead and look up. I'm not 100% sure, but like how many? Yeah, the lowest is 200 million. I said 15 million just from before the lines were drawn. And this is both Hindu, Sikh, and Muslims, right? So could you imagine, like, that's just an estimate, and that was the lowest. So all this bloodshed for what? And you can still kind of see like issues now. Like, we kind of spoke about this in one of our other topics about tolerance of other religions in the brown community. We were talking about how, I'm trying to remember. Oh yeah, I was saying how like Pakistanis and Indians don't really get along, but it definitely ties into this partition. Like, everything that happened to these specific people, because I was just telling you one story and one tiny bit of a story that my Nanu had told me during the partition. You know how many other stories there are about Muslims being prosecuted, Hindus being prosecuted, Sikhs being prosecuted, like all across the board. There's so many different stories that we haven't heard. And again, when it comes to the conflict, many people were being forced out of their homes, like I mentioned earlier, and most of their homes, if they didn't leave, they were just being burned, right? And you can imagine how many like masjids or temples were being burned. Like, all of this chaos just from the lines being drawn, right? Like, it caused so much turmoil. So if you guys learned something new or like that video, make sure to subscribe, follow, and do everything I said earlier. This is a serious topic, and like I said, this is the first part of a 3 series. We're gonna be releasing them every Friday, and hopefully we get back to the regular schedule. We just been having a little bit of trouble uploading some stuff, so that's why it's late upload. But yeah, so follow everything, stay tuned, and make sure to share, please. And please leave suggestions. If you guys want to know something or you want to learn about something, And if you have feedback, please let us know, and we will be happy to, get back to you guys. And yeah, Brown Lifestyle out.